Welcome to another edition of the video series, Give Me 5 Minutes. Today's topic is about the thesis at master's level. Depending on your institution and depending on your course of study, you may be expected to write either a 10,000 word thesis or a 15,000 word thesis at the end of your course. Today, I'm going to look at what a thesis is, what it entails, and what is the structure. How do you approach a thesis? First, what is a thesis at master's level? It is basically your contribution to knowledge. You are expected to choose a topic, hopefully that you are passionate about, collect data, and use the academic process of carrying out research and write your findings. What are you evaluated on? Contrary to popular belief, you are evaluated based on the process of carrying out research. You are not evaluated on the outcome. If you find a significant outcome, you can work with your supervisor and your research will be published. You would be celebrated. But even if you found results that were not statistically significant, but you carried out the process, your research is still valid and you could still get an A grade. So it is about the process more than it's about the outcome. So what does it entail? Generally, a thesis is made up of 5 main areas. There are some students who want to do it in 6 chapters, thereby splitting chapter 3 into what they intend to do, how they intend to analyze data as their methodology chapter, and then chapter 4 being their results and findings. But generally, I would look at it as 5 areas, 5 chapters. First chapter, introduction. You are basically introducing your topic. You are telling the reader why it is important. You are kind of selling the idea why it is relevant for you to carry out that research. What contribution you intend to make in that subject area, right? You give your research aims, your research objectives, and most importantly, you close your introductory chapter with a description of the remainder of the report. That's chapter 1. In chapter 2, the literature review. What is expected of you? You need to show the reader that you are aware of what has already been done in that subject area, right? You need to be able to convince the researcher that you are aware of what is already known in the subject area. You are aware of where there are divergence of opinion in the subject area, and if possible, if you have found a gap in the literature. Understand that the literature review is exclusively about what others have already done, so extant research. Then chapter 3. This is the core of your research because it is your own contribution to that subject area. And you start chapter 3 by subscribing to a particular philosophy. For this video, I'm going to focus on positivism. That is the positivist philosophy to research. You choose a philosophy, in this case positivism, then you choose an approach, the deductive approach, which aligns with the positivist viewpoint, and your research methods then become quantitative. Remember, with quantitative analysis, you start with a theoretical framework, a particular theory that underpins your research. Then you gather data, you set hypotheses, and then you test the null hypothesis by either accepting or rejecting the null hypothesis. That is basically the structure of your methodology chapter for quantitative research, right? After you've done your analysis, then you can write the second part, which is basically your results. And it is important to start your result with descriptive statistics, where you differentiate between your numeric variables and you have them in tabular format, with each numeric variable listed, the number of observations denoted by capital N, then the minimum value, maximum value, the mean or the average, and the standard deviation for all numeric variables in a single table. Then you go to your categorical or the nominal variables, and you can represent them using pictographs. Something like gender, you can represent them with a pie chart, level of education and other, think about categorical variables that have more than 4 options. Using a bar chart is best. After, you will need to do your model evaluation. And depending on the statistical software, the package that you use for analysis, these are outputs that you will get. Your model evaluation, your ANOVA, and your coefficient table or your best fit model. All of this you need to put in the second part of your methodology and your results. And when writing your result, please, for every variable that is not statistically significant, you leave it at that. It is not statistically significant, period. It's only for variables that show statistical significance that you start interpreting the coefficient. How, what percentage, depending on the measurement of the unit of measurement for the dependent variable, how much that independent variable affects the dependent variable. And you need to always put the conditionality, holding every other thing constant, holding all the other variables constant. This is termed the ceteris paribus. When you're done with your results, you go to your next chapter, chapter 4, the discussion. And the discussion is basically the interpretation of your results, right? You also compare the key findings that you have found with external literature, external research, what others have done in the past, what they found. Where there are similarities, you highlight them, and where there are discrepancies or differences, you explain why you believe there are these discrepancies. And you always end your discussion with limitations to your study. Every study has limitations. The next is your chapter 5, where you reiterate your thesis, why it was important to carry that thesis to begin with. Then you lay out your key findings, right? You lay your key findings and explain again why your work is relevant. And you always end your conclusion with the recommendations for further studies, for further research. You can build these recommendations based on either the gaps in literature that you found or the limitations of your own studies. In a nutshell, this is how you carry out quantitative research at master's level. And please, how do you structure? Where do you start? Please, you don't start with the introduction. You start your research by securing your data. If you're using a survey instrument, you create your survey, send it out. While you are collecting data, you go to your literature review. You write your literature review. If by the time you're done with your literature review, your data is ready, you can go in with your analysis. If it is not, you can write the first part of your methodology chapter up till hypothesis while waiting on your data. And once you then collect your data, you can write your results, and then you go to your discussion and conclusion. And you lastly come back to write your introduction. And that is because there are certain parts of the introduction that you need from, say, your literature review, right? So it is best to write your introduction last. And to conclude, lest I forget, writing, carrying out quantitative analysis using primary data, talking about a questionnaire or a survey. Unfortunately, I've come across many students who believe that writing, designing a survey is just writing what you think you want to ask. No. A survey or a questionnaire is reverse engineered from the type of analysis that you want to carry out. We're talking about quantitative analysis. At the barest minimum, you are expected to run a regression, a simple linear regression. How do you collect data that would be adequate to run a regression? You need to understand the type of regression and what are the variables that you need. 7 to 10 variables, one dependent variable, which should be numeric variable on a scale from 0 to infinity. And then you have a couple of 3 or 4 additional numeric variables, 2 to 3 categorical variables, and you can add a couple of scale variables. All of these variables predefined are what forms the questions that you put in your questionnaire and send out as a survey. So please understand that a survey is not created from space, from thin air. It is reverse engineered from the type of analysis that you intend to run. Thank you very much. I hope this helps somebody who is stressed. I understand that students lose a lot of sleep when it comes, to writing their research. But if you know what you're supposed to do and you structure yourself, it should not be that difficult of a task. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Goodbye.